Trump agenda. I'm Janine Pirro in tonight for Sean. For the hour tonight, we're going to highlight the recent major developments surrounding President Trump's agenda, including the administration's big gains on immigration reform, infrastructure, jobs, and so much more. Earlier today, the president touted some of those recent achievements during his speech in Ohio. Take a look.
Joined by our friends here in Ohio, my administration is fighting every day to protect and defend and grow American jobs. And you see what's happening all over the country. It's in Ohio, but it's all over the country. Pouring back plants and factories, pouring back into our country. We've made history by massively reducing job-killing taxes. We didn't have one Democrat who voted for that. They want to raise your taxes. And they want people to come in from the border. And they want, I can't imagine they want, but certainly drugs are flowing across borders. We need walls. We started building our wall. I'm so proud of it. We started, we have 1.6 billion. And we've already started. You saw the pictures yesterday. I said, what a thing of beauty. And on September 28th, we go further, and we're getting that sucker built. And you think that's easy? People said, oh, has he given up on the war? No, I never give up. We've unleashed American energy independence. Energy exports are at a record high, and foreign imports are at their lowest level in much more than a decade. We're keeping our promises, and the results are in. 3 million new jobs since Election Day. 3 million. Unemployment claims are at their lowest level in 45 years. Lowest level. 45 years! African-American unemployment has reached the lowest levels ever recorded. Hispanic-American unemployment rate has also reached the lowest levels ever recorded. We're going to bring our country to a level of success and prominence and pride like it has never, ever seen before.
Joining us now live from the White House to break down the president's speech is Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry. Ed?
Judge, great to see you. The president at the top of that speech joked that he heard again and again back in the campaign that you can't win the White House without carrying the Buckeye State. He obviously won Ohio against the odds. It helped propel him here to the White House. He wants it again in 2020. And what he was doing was touting those economic gains he's made in just over a year. But also the key part of the message today was a new push for his massive infrastructure plan, which frankly has been stalled in Congress. The president trying to build on the momentum of his tax cut as well as all of the government regulations he's been cutting. He said it was time to consider his $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan. The president said that in addition to stimulating the economy, it will create in the neighborhood of 300 to 400,000 more construction jobs over 10 years, despite the high price tag that will obviously add further to our soaring national debt. The president noted that while America used to be the envy of the world with its infrastructure, some parts of the nation now have roads and bridges in such disrepair that the conditions are almost third world. And that also gave the president an opportunity to put in a pitch again for obviously a key campaign promise, another bit of infrastructure, building the wall on the southern border. In fact, the president said he's so determined to do that, he went so far as to compare our southern border with Mexico to the border between South and North Korea. Listen.
We spend billions of dollars in other countries maintaining their borders, and we can't maintain our borders in our own country. Is there something a little bit wrong with that? Think of it. We spend billions and billions of dollars. Look, North and South Korea, 32,000 soldiers, the finest equipment, barbed wire all over the place. We protect that whole thing.
Now, later in the afternoon, as he arrived in Florida to spend the Easter weekend with his family at his Mar-a-Lago estate, the president tweeting again about the economy, following up on that message you just heard, declaring, quote, jobs, jobs, jobs Unemployment claims have fallen to a 45-year low. Together, we're making the economy great again. Now, in his speech, the president also boasted that the U.S. is, quote, knocking the hell out of ISIS. He predicted the U.S. over time is going to be getting out of the Mideast, focusing more on priorities here at home. And at one point, he added that, quote, we're getting that sucker built, meaning, of course, the wall on the southern border. Judge?
Ed, thanks so much.
Good to see you.
All right. And joining us now with the reaction is former press secretary for Vice President Pence, Mark Lotter, and former Obama economic advisor, Austin Goolsbee. All right. Good evening, gentlemen. Mark, I'll start with you. I mean, the president certainly has a lot to talk about, 14 months, 15 months in, with all of the numbers that he talked about with unemployment and jobs and 3 million new jobs since Election Day. I mean, there's pretty much a very positive message. It's kind of interesting that there would be any resistance toward his effort, at least to create the infrastructure effort that apparently is stalled in Congress. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's basically what you just said. It's results versus resistance. And in this case, the president has the results, but he's not satisfied yet. He doesn't want to just make America great again. He's now talking about making and building an even better America again. And that's where his focus is, into the heart of blue-collar Ohio. He's going to take it around the country for the rest of the next 3 years. And that's the platform he's going to move this country forward with.
All right. And Austin, I mean, you would agree, wouldn't you, that our roads and our bridges are certainly in need of repair, and yet the Democrats, as Mark indicated, continue to resist. This is not a political issue. Why wouldn't they come together to make sure that we repair our roads and bridges and get a better infrastructure?
Well, I do agree with you. I thought he ought to hire you guys to clean up his speeches. The actual speech there was you made it a lot more coherent and on message. He was all over the place. I mean, he was talking about Roseanne and talking about North Korea. On infrastructure, it's not just the Democrats
but Austin,
are holding
you know
him
what?
up.
I have to interrupt you. They love him for that.
Okay.
That's why he got elected.
Okay.
People love his street talk.
You may be right. You may be right. But on the issue of infrastructure, it's not just the Democrats that are holding him up. What's going wrong is the president's infrastructure plan is not actually a plan for federal increase in spending on infrastructure of the size he's talking about. He's trying in his plan to put the cost onto the states, and even the Republican governors are saying they don't want to do that plan. So that's the problem. He's got to find more of a common ground.
Mark?
Well, infrastructure has always been a federal, state, local partnership. And what the president's talking about doing is taking $200 billion and using that to leverage local, state, private sector monies to the tune of $1.5 trillion. And that's the way we should be doing it, because right now there are too many states and local governments, especially in some of the areas in the Northeast, that they get most of their money from the federal government and they just go ahead and waste it. If they put more skin in the game, then maybe they will be better stewards of that money and make sure that the projects are getting built on time, under budget, and that's what the president's focused on.
And you know, Austin.
Okay, but I don't agree with that. That was not a correct statement. All across the country, historically, we've had 90% of the money paid by the federal government, and they require a 10% match from the states, in every state, not just New England. And this plan of the president is $200 billion. That he's going to cut $200 billion from infrastructure in other places for a net increase of nothing, and shift it so that 80+% of the cost goes to the states. That's why the states are opposed to the plan. You were asking, why is it stalled in Congress? It's because of that.
Well, you know what? But Austin, you also have to admit, I mean, the way to react to President Trump if you're a Democrat is to resist. Well, Mark, can you answer his question?
Well, no, he's absolutely right. It's always been a federal split. But what I'm saying is because so much of that money comes from the federal government, it is often wasted. When you put more local state skin in the game, which is what the president is calling on, in addition to putting private sector money in, you know it will be better managed because it's their money, their limited resources that they're going to have to better look out for and make sure they're delivering projects that have the greatest impact to their taxpayers, to their economy. And that's where the president's focused on this, and it's the right focus.
It's called accountability. Mark, Austin, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
We'll have more on President Trump's agenda in just a moment, but first we have a developing story to bring you. Just a few hours ago, Attorney General Jeff Sessions responded to requests from Chairman Grassley, Goodlatte, and Gowdy to appoint a second special counsel. In the letter, Sessions denied their requests, but announced that he has appointed a senior federal prosecutor to lead the Justice Department's investigation into FISA abuse. This comes after Sessions told Time magazine that his decision to recuse himself from the Russia investigation was, quote, the right thing to do. Joining us now with analysis, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. All right, a couple of things. Greg, I'm going to start with you. I believe it was November 13th. For some reason, that sticks in my brain as the date when the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, said he would consider the issue of a second special counsel.
He was never going to consider it.
Yeah, well, he said no. He said his high-level justice people will consider it. Here we are at the end of March.
Sure.
And he's saying no special counsel. And instead, he's going to refer this FISA abuse to a guy from Utah.
Right. John Huber is his name, originally an Obama appointee. I suspect this was all engineered by Rod Rosenstein, who is an Obama-Clinton acolyte, pals with Barbara Mikulski, the most liberal, now former senator on Capitol Hill. You know, Sessions doesn't even realize that he is being manipulated and exploited. This is a guy who spent most of his career on Capitol Hill as a senator doing nothing. And suddenly he's in charge of the Department of Justice and the FBI, and he's way over his head. So he relies on people like Rosenstein.
But why Utah? I mean, plus,
yeah, exactly.
How do you get, if what we're looking at are problems created by the Department of Justice and the FBI by, proffering an unverified dossier to a FISA court, Sarah Carter, doesn't it make sense that these should be the last people to investigate this issue?
Well, I understand that argument, and I did contact people within the Department of Justice and other sources of mine who know Mr. John Huber, who is the U.S. Attorney in Utah. And one of the things that was mentioned here is the fact that he has not stopped from appointing a special counsel. That was reiterated to me over and over again. Mr. Huber has been working on this case, Judge Janine, since the fall. So he has been on this since the fall. I have also been told that the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, has already made criminal referrals. So this doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen. I understand there's a lot of concern, especially among congressional members who've asked for this. It doesn't also mean that the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, won't call for a special counsel after Michael Horowitz's report is made open to the public.
Sarah, you didn't see us, but both Greg and I looked at each other when you said, with all due respect, it doesn't mean the Attorney General won't call for a special counsel. Go ahead, Greg.
I'll be dead and gone by the time this special counsel Sessions gets around to it. Here's the problem. Even with Huber, based out in Utah.
Hey, and by the way, I don't know Huber, and I mean no disrespect to him. I am sure he's a fabulous federal prosecutor. Let's just put that on the table.
But in the past, he investigated national security issues and criminal issues.
Oh, that's great.
So
how many United States attorneys are there?
Yeah.
You know, here's the problem. He's a part of the Department of Justice. So you still have cops investigating cops. The whole point of a special counsel, and the law says you have to bring somebody from outside the Department of Justice. Huber is inside the Department of Justice. And the other problem is with the Inspector General helping Huber, he doesn't have jurisdiction over the main players who've left the FBI. James Comey, Sally Yates, who left the Department of Justice, James Rubicki, who has left the FBI.
But you know what's interesting, Greg, is that the Attorney General kept saying, well, let's let the IG do his job. You and I both know letting the IG do his job is just letting time pass. And the more time passes, the less it's done. But the bottom line here is everything seems to be a series of steps. Why don't people just go and get it done?
Right. The other example, and I mentioned last night, the FBI has been stonewalling, not handing over more than 1 million documents requested. Forget with the nice request, forget with the subpoena. If you had a special counsel, you convene a grand jury, you go to a judge, you get a warrant and you seize it. Go in there with federal marshals and seize it.
That's
the way you do it. If it were you or me, they'd be armed with a warrant.
And you know,
Greg,
Sarah,
Greg's
I mean,
absolutely
that's
right.
the reason that Hillary Clinton got away with so much. They signaled every move they were going to make, and then they sent subpoenas. You go in with a warrant. I used to sign them all the time. I used to seek them. You get it done. You break in, you do what you've got to do. But by the way, notice how quick they were doing. The special counsel did it with Paul Manafort in the middle of the night.
That's exactly right.
Well, that's a very good example, and you're absolutely right about that. And one of the concerns here, Judge Janine, is the fact that Rod Rosenstein, you know, he's reporting to Rod Rosenstein, and if he's looking at Uranium One as well, remember Rod Rosenstein oversaw a lot of those cases when he was the U.S. Attorney in Maryland, and I don't know how that is in a conflict of interest. There's some issues here that are very concerning. I understand what Greg is saying, and that was something that I questioned as well. How can Huber, who's part of the DOJ, be investigating bad guys in the DOJ? But I do believe things are moving forward in certain aspects. We saw that with the firing of Andrew McCabe, and I also believe that we're going to see some criminal prosecutions down the road on this.
The statute of limitations is going to run on a lot of them, so you have to move expeditiously, and they're not.
Also, guys, my understanding is that the United States Attorney in Arkansas is the one who's looking at the Clinton Foundation.
Yes.
I read that this guy's looking at the Clinton Foundation, too. And that makes no sense.
Absolutely.
And good
How
for
could you
them.
do both?
And they can't report to Rosenstein. Rosenstein's signature is on some of the papers associated with Russia's extortion, bribery, money laundering scheme that enabled the sale of Uranium One.
That's right. And with respect to not just the Clinton Foundation, but the Uranium One aspect, is anyone looking at that, Sarah?
Yes, they are. That is part of this investigation. Well,
which, Hoover's
I am just
or Arkansas?
with you. No, Huber is looking into this, and as well as Little Rock. It's the FBI field office in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Right.
And we're still not clear as to why that initiated there. But I can tell you this, Judge Janine, there are 5 FBI field offices involved in this investigation. The only one we've heard of is the Little Rock, Arkansas office. But I can tell you there's 4 other FBI field offices involved in the Clinton Foundation investigation.
I have confidence in the rank and file FBI agents, the field offices. The trouble is at FBI Hoover headquarters in Washington, D.C., and the top echelon that appear to be quite corrupt.
There's no question. It's the worker bees in the FBI who are doing all the work. And I understand, by the way, that memos go out to the field offices to get people to assist in the Arkansas investigation, forensic accountants, that kind of thing. So that may be moving along. But you know what? I agree with you, Greg. I think at the end of the day, we may miss a statute in a lot of these.
Oh, I think you've already missed a bunch of statute of limitations.
I'll be up all night again. All right.
You already missed the James Clapper lying before Congress statute of limitations 3 weeks ago. That's gone.
Yeah, and I hear Clapper just did it again.
Oh,
what a shock. Anyway, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Greg. And coming up, President Trump today addressed how Orange County, California is standing up to the state's sanctuary laws. That and more as this special edition of Hannity continues.
They're building our wall. I'm so proud of it. We started. We have 1.6 billion. And we've already started. You saw the pictures yesterday. I said, what a thing of beauty. And on September 28th, we go further, and we're getting that sucker built. And you think that's easy? People said, oh, has he given up on the wall? No, I never give up. You look at what's going on in California, Orange County. They've had it. There's a revolution going on out there. Sanctuary cities where they protect criminals. They protect murderers. They protect people that you don't want on the streets. Other places in California said, we don't want that. First time they're speaking up.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda. That was President Trump earlier today talking about building the border wall and how Orange County, California is actually rebelling against the state's sanctuary laws. Our own Griff Jenkins is in California and has been speaking to local officials. Griff?
Hey, Judge, you know, the president really has found an ally out here in the sea of anti-Trump resistance. But let's put this in perspective. In Orange County, since January 1st, the Orange County Sheriff's Office has released 244 criminals, illegal immigrant criminals who committed crimes like drug dealing, drunk driving, assaults back into the community, posing a threat potentially to the citizens of Orange County. Now, before California's sanctuary state law and the new SB 54, as it's known, these inmates would have been turned over to the federal authorities authorities, or ICE, before the release for deportation. So working under what current laws provide, the Orange County Sheriff's Office has begun posting an inmate release date list. It's called the Who's in Jail list to try and help ICE to apprehend these inmates when they're released. That's up and running now. And we went inside that jail in Orange County, where hundreds more under this new state law will be released in the coming days. And we spoke with Under Sheriff Don Barnes.
We're releasing thieves, drug addicts, drug possession, some of these crimes that normally are high-ranking, high-level crimes, but because of some other legislation, they're now misdemeanors. And that prevents them from being turned over to ICE. So these are known criminals. They have extensive criminal backgrounds, and we want to make sure that we have the ability, wherever possible, to help keep our community safe. We don't do local law enforcement at the street level, immigration enforcement. That's not our job. That's the job of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Our focus is on criminals within the care and custody of the Orange County jail system, and every tool that we can use to make that information available for another agency's review that will help keep criminals off the street will always be our primary mission of the Sheriff's Department.
And the sheriff is not alone. The Orange County Board of Supervisors voted this week to join the Trump administration's lawsuit against the sanctuary state law. They hope to block SB 54 because they believe it's in the interest of public safety. So we spoke also today to one of those supervisors, Michelle Steele, who is herself a first-generation immigrant. Here's what she had to say.
What is your message to counties all across the country dealing with this threat?
Well, you know, even it's California that in Sacramento, it's not just that SB 54, but we have other different really bad laws that they introduced. So we try to stop, and other counties that they have to join us. So we are leading. I know exactly how it goes because I'm very sensitive about the immigration issues because, as you know, that I'm a first-generation immigrant. So, you know what? At least I lead and people see that, you know what, this is not really right things to do because public safety always comes first.
Now, Steele says she believes this is just the beginning of a trend for counties and local law enforcement getting behind supporting federal law enforcement. And just think about that for a second. You need a movement to get behind supporting federal laws. Very interesting. And then, of course, we have Governor Brown and Attorney General Becerra leading things out here. One county just south of Orange County, San Diego County, in the specific city of Escondido might join the lawsuit like Orange County has. It's on the agenda for the Escondido City Council next week on April 4th. The mayor there saying that they believe a measure to join the federal lawsuit and support may actually pass. We'll find out more. We'll be on top of this, Judge, all day tomorrow. And we're probably also going to talk to the ICE, the local ICE director here, about how it's impacting him on his end of the receiving these inmates and trying to track them down. Judge?
Griff, thanks so much. And joining me now with more reaction is NRA TV contributor and former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino and immigration attorney Francisco Hernandez. All right, guys, what we have is the Department of Justice is suing the state of California, saying that it is protecting undocumented immigrants and it is obstructing ICE in their ability to perform the law. Then what you've got is the state of California saying we're going to protect everyone, but now what seems to be the beginning of a trend where the counties are saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't want to be a part of this sanctuary state. You just heard, and I'm going to start with you, Hernando. I mean, you just heard, Francisco, I should say, you just heard that hundreds of criminals are being released into the community. Now,
Your Honor.
Was that a fact? Wait a minute. Did you and I just listen? Let's start with the same premise. That corrections officer under sheriff said hundreds were released.
Your Honor, same song, different jukebox. Your Honor, you were a judge. Listen, you and I both know that federal law preempts any state law. What a cop-out by the sheriff. So the sheriff takes an oath when he takes office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And he's on national television telling us that he is willingly releasing people that should have been already picked up by ICE. But, you know, let's abandon this sanctuary cities thing. You know that in Texas allows convicted felons to get their gun rights back after 5 years.
Oh, we're not talking about Texas.
It's still
Come on.
against
No.
federal law, and
Stop
nobody's
doing a
calling
two-step
Texas
on me.
sanctuary
Dan,
state,
what is your
and it is
response?
directly
No.
contravention with
I
federal law.
don't care about Texas. We're talking about California. We're talking about, stop laughing. We're talking about a state that has one of the biggest unemployment levels, that is almost at a poverty level. You've got criminals being released, and you're laughing about it. Hit it, Dan.
And you're letting that sheriff get away with telling you that it's okay to do it?
Okay, Francisco's just going to keep, he does this all the time. And then what he's going to do is Francisco's going to change the argument to be about Texas because he knows he has absolutely no standing and no logical reason to defend this policy. Judge,
because
it's
the law
almost
is preempted
comical
by
that the
federal
state
law.
of California...
The state law is preempted.
Francisco, is this going to be beta? Is this the Francisco show? You want to just go, or are you going to let me talk?
Come on, guys,
Can
let Dan answer.
Actually, I think it's judges.
Francisco, let Dan answer.
Francisco, we were making a point about California. Clearly, California is lying when they say they're looking to protect all the citizens of California because they're not looking to protect U.S. citizens in California from people who entered the country illegally, then committed crimes, and should be deported. Entering the country without inspection is a crime. It's a crime.
That's not what the sheriff said. And
No,
the sheriff
but wait, Francisco, wait. Would you agree that California, the more it protects undocumented immigrants, the more you're going to be going into debt because it will attract more people who are interested in education, medication, housing, and they drain the economy. They don't come in the way everyone else comes in.
That is my
That's exactly the point. If I'm going to have to pay for California when it goes under.
Can I answer the question?
Hit it. Go ahead.
Okay, that's my point. You don't see convicted felons flocking to Texas to get their gun rights back. There is no such thing as a sanctuary state or city. It is a political phantom.
Okay.
Why don't we get on with immigration reform?
It's a political phantom. Tell that to, wait a minute, tell that to Kate Donnelly's family. Go ahead, Dan.
Francisco, he's just making this stuff up. Like, he comes on a nationally televised show with 3 million viewers, and he's literally making it up. You're right, Francisco. Sanctuary cities and states don't exist at all. All of these local jurisdictions and their police departments have been told, yes, cooperate fully with law enforcement. We're all making this up. Everybody's just inventing this. You and I both know
every law enforcement officer takes an oath first to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and don't tell me any city, county, or state
let me ask you a question.
Going to tell them to do otherwise.
Francisco, question for you. How many years have you spent in law enforcement? I'm just curious. Give us your total years in law enforcement. How many?
28 years.
Okay. 28. Where were you a police officer? I'm just checking here.
You didn't ask if I was a police officer.
Well, law enforcement, what does that mean to you?
That's a different question. Sanctuary
cities are a political
phantom. Well, you just represented on this show, Francisco, that you were in law enforcement. Were you in law enforcement, yes or no?
Well, that wasn't the question. No, I'm not in law enforcement. I would love to be a Texas Ranger, quite frankly.
Go ahead, Dan.
This is unbelievable. He can't even...
But, Your Honor, you know...
how law enforcement actually works.
Your Honor.
I was there at the federal and the local level, so I've seen it on both sides. When there is an edict that comes down from your police department that says you don't cooperate with ICE and turn these people over when they leave jail, you know what? You don't turn them over or you lose your job. You waxing philosophic and poetic on the air about what would happen is total, complete nonsense.
Why can't I go get them? Your Honor, it's called a supremacy clause.
Because you're letting them out. Let me answer your question, Francisco. The reason ICE can't go get them is because you're letting them out the side door and you're protecting them.
They're not letting them out the side door. They don't.
Wait, Judge, hold on.
It's called an immigration
law. I actually think that ICE... Francisco, do you think ICE has enough agents to sit outside of every police department in the country and wait for the release date?
Have you asked ICE if they need help?
They do because they're not being notified.
Coming up, thank you, gentlemen. There are big developments involving President Trump's policies on Russia and North Korea. Alan West and Congressman Ron DeSantis weigh in next. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, The Trump Agenda. Despite what the fake news is saying, relations between the Trump administration and Russia are getting even colder. The Trump administration condemned Russia again today after Moscow announced that it will expel 60 U.S. diplomats and close a U.S. consulate in St. Petersburg in retaliation for President Trump's decision to expel 60 of their diplomats diplomats and close a Russian consulate in Seattle. President Trump's tough action was in response to Russia's suspected poisoning of an ex-spy and his daughter in Great Britain earlier this month. But that's not the only foreign policy issue the president is dealing with today. He also spoke about possibly holding up a major trade agreement with South Korea until the nuclear situation in North Korea gets resolved. Take a look.
I may hold it up till after a deal is made with North Korea. Does everybody understand that? Do you know why, right? Do you know why? Because it's a very strong card. And I want to make sure everyone is treated fairly, and we're moving along very nicely with North Korea. We'll see what happens. Certainly, the rhetoric has calmed down just a little bit. Would you say? Would you say? And we'll see how it all turns out. Maybe it'll be good, and maybe it won't. And if it's no good, we're walking. And if it's good, we will embrace it.
Joining us now, he's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis. Also joining us, former Florida Congressman, Fox News contributor Alan West. Well, I guess, guys, you would both agree that the rhetoric is clamping down a bit, and that's all good. We're not hearing about Rocket Man and all the other stuff from Rocket Man. So I'll start with you, Congressman DeSantis. You know, you sit on the House Intelligence Committee. You know, what we've got today with the expulsion of, you know, the Russian diplomats and then their retaliation or tit for tat. Although the issue is that, you know, we had a reason for the tat. It was the British spy who was poisoned on the UK grounds. His daughter, I understand, is still alive, but is getting better. They had no reason other than retaliation. What does that tell you about Russia and the United States?
Well, it tells me that under the Trump administration, they've had a policy of being very firm against Russia, which is in contrast to the Obama administration. You remember when Obama was in, they tried to reset. They did nothing when Russia invaded Crimea, made incursions into Ukraine, went into Syria. What has this president done, Donald Trump, since he's been in office? He has provided lethal aid to Ukraine so they could defend themselves. Obama wouldn't do that. He's provided Patriot missiles to Poland so they can defend themselves. He struck Assad in Syria, which Obama wouldn't do, and forced the red line. And then he's really committed to expanding America's oil and gas capability. Russia, at the end of the day, you know, they have nuclear weapons, but they're a big gas station. And to the extent that we're challenging them with our exports to Europe, that's going to weaken Putin. So this is a president that's been strong against Russia.
And Colonel Alan West, I mean, you know, when we talk about a Cold War, and there is talk now that we may be entering into a new phase, which is almost ironic given the fact that the Democrats keep saying that the Trump team colluded with Russia, and after 15 months they've come up with zilch. But do you think we're entering a new Cold War era?
Without a doubt, Judge, we are getting there. You know, when Vladimir Putin was asked about the greatest disappointment he had in the 20th century, he said it was the collapse of the Soviet Union. So what you see is someone that is trying to reestablish that Russian hegemonic dominance. You know the threats that he's made against the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Congressman DeSantis already talked about some of the threats that he has made with the Crimea and the Ukraine. And so he has done that because he has not seen a very strong policy. You're starting to see that type of strong policy. And with the announcement that John Bolton is going to be the National Security Advisor, I don't think you will get the same type of weak and feckless advice that a Susan Rice was given to President Barack Obama.
Yeah, and Ron, you're nodding your head.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, John Bolton, you know, is a very strong voice, very clear thinker. And I think that importantly, he knows how the bureaucracy works. And so he's going to be instrumental in getting the bureaucrats to actually enforce President Trump's policies, which they haven't been, you know, as willing to do as they were under Obama. So I think it was a really good choice. And I do think that you will see positive results in terms of the execution of the Trump foreign policy.
And, you know, what about with the president talking about, you know, the North Korea situation and the fact that, you know, he's got a strong card now, Alan, as it relates to North and South Korea?
Well, it's been very interesting. We know that Kim Jong-un, the first time he has ever left North Korea was this week to go and travel and sit down with Xi Jinping in China. I think that China and North Korea are very nervous. They understand that the president, number one, this is not about strategic patience. Number two, they know that the president will put pressure on China and definitely pressure on North Korea, and he is not backing down. And so they find themselves in a very precarious situation. And I think Xi Jinping wants to make sure that Kim Jong-un is very clear in understanding that China cannot have a Korean peninsula that is friendly to the United States of America, Japan, or our allies, as opposed to China. China cannot afford for an implosion to happen in North Korea with a mass influx of refugees and also the loss of the hydroelectric power plants that provide a lot of electricity for those northern provinces in China.
Interesting. And back to you, Ron, Congressman DeSantis. You know, we saw Kim Jong-un for the first year of the president's administration, the first 13, 14 months, you know, setting off those ICBMs and you know, with all the name calling and saying we were going to get a birthday present, you know, on the 4th of July and all that other stuff. All of a sudden, he's starting to dress in kind of Western gear, kind of, and he's making trips outside of his country. What do you think has caused this man to do this abrupt turnaround?
Well, I think it's the pressure that the president and his administration have put on North Korea and on China to a certain extent. And we've made more progress on the, and look, we're a long way to go. It's a very difficult problem. Kim Jong-un is a thug. But I will say that the Trump administration has made more progress in 15 months than his predecessors did in the last quarter century. So a lot of work left to do, but I think the president deserves credit that we're on the brink of potentially finally getting some good resolution here. And very quickly, finally, Alan, the whole idea of, you know, without the Russian diplomats here, you know, we are also, in addition to the Cold War, as you mentioned, entering a new period where there can be continuing cyber attacks. You don't really need to be on the homeland. You know, they call them hybrid warfare, cyber attacks. Mm-hmm. That's certainly potential. Yes?
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's that new dimension of warfare. We see that from China. We see it from Russia. We see it from North Korea. And I think that that's one of the critical things when the president sits down with Kim Jong-un to get them to curtail their cyber warfare programs and their aggressive actions, as well as he needs to express that to China. But without a doubt, we need to understand we've got to block Russia in every way, shape, form, and fashion.
All right. Thank you very much, Congressman. And coming up, President Trump today gave a strong warning to his supporters about this year's midterm elections. Larry Elder and Doug Schoen react next.
They don't like the wins we've been getting. They don't like that the economy, the Democrats, they don't like that the economy is so strong. They don't like that they don't have one vote on the tax cuts. Not one vote. And we should do well. History says that when you win the presidency, that party doesn't do so well in the midterms because people get complacent. They get complacent. We cannot be complacent. We've got the greatest economy maybe ever. Maybe in history. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. You know, the expression from, I guess it was Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid. Well, it is the economy.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda. That was President Trump today during a speech in Ohio, touting his historic tax cuts and warning his supporters that they cannot be complacent in this year's midterm elections. Joining us now is Salem Radio nationally syndicated host Larry Elder and former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. All right, gentlemen, I'll start with you, Doug, since you're sitting here. I mean, there's no question that the president's numbers are going up, that no one can really deny that unemployment is at almost an all-time low. We've added an enormous number of jobs since he came into office. I mean, what's to complain about?
Well, it is really the structural issues, I think, that are working for the Democrats. First, as the president said, there's a natural inclination to vote against the in-party in midterm elections. The Democrats are +7 now on the generic vote. Also, there are 25 Republican congressmen up in districts Hillary won and 40 Republican retirements. So this suggests to me the Democrats have a real shot to win the House.
What do you say to that, Larry?
I say that he's right. They have a real shot to win the House. It certainly is true that in these off-year elections, I think only 2 times has the party in power not lost seats. But one of those was fairly recent. That was George W. Bush. Look, the economy is booming, as you pointed out, Judge. People opened up their paychecks and saw more money. And only one person is responsible for that, and that's Donald Trump. You can talk about the stock market. You can talk about housing appreciation. You can talk about a lot of things. And the left will say, well, all he's doing is following the same policies of Barack Obama. If that's true, why do you hate him so much, A? But B, you cannot say that about the opening up your check and seeing more money. That's Donald Trump. And believe me, come the fall, a whole lot of people are going to be worried about throwing out the Republicans and putting a drag on Trump by putting in Democrats. I don't know that if I were a Democrat, I wouldn't be all that optimistic about taking over the House. It's still going to be an uphill fight.
Well, and there's no question, Doug, the president is right. I mean, normally midterm after the first year. I mean, historically, traditionally. And I agree with what Larry is saying. When they look at their checks, and if the Republicans can get out the message, hey, guys, look, not one of those Democrats wanted you to have that money in your check. Not one of them wanted 471 or 17 companies that put bonuses and all kinds of benefits that they didn't have last year. But would you agree that the left is so energized?
Yes, and it's something else. You speak, and Larry speaks about Donald Trump. The real problem for the Republicans is the Republican Congress. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, whose approval is about 18% now. And so the Democrats, if they're smart, will run not only against Trump, but against the Congress, and that is a fruitful way to proceed.
Okay, Larry.
And Judge, that's exactly what the Republicans are going to do. They're going to run against Nancy Pelosi and that side of the Congress. They're no more popular than the Republican side is.
I wish she was gone.
Congress is not popular.
Yeah, Congress is. He was agreeing. We're all agreeing.
I'm agreeing that Nancy Pelosi is a millstone around the Democrats. Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania won because he ran away from her. And my advice to my fellow Democrats is stay as far away from the far left and Nancy Pelosi as possible.
But
Judge,
go ahead, Larry.
Judge Doug and my brother Kirk are the most reasonable Democrats I've ever run across.
Thank you, Larry.
And Connor Lamb won because he ran very much like Trump. He adopted the tax cut plan, talked about all of that, and ran against Nancy Pelosi. Is that the Democratic Party that the left really wants? A party that's a lot more like Trump? I don't think so, but I prefer that to the party that's Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid.
But you know what? I have to tell you, gentlemen, I don't even know what the Democratic Party is anymore. Are they the Antifas who are against free speech? Are they the, gun-hating Second Amendment people? Or are they kind of more run-of-the-mill?
We don't know. The Democratic message is going to be resist and hopefully move to the center. But even if it's resist, they have a fighting chance to win.
All right, Larry and Doug, thanks so much for being with us. All right, and more of this special edition of Hannity right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thanks so much for being with us, and I'm going to be back tomorrow night hosting. And I just want to say one thing. I said a British spy, he was a Russian double agent. And by the way, you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Hope you have a great night. Now, Laura, who I think is sitting there pretty in pink. Are you there, Laura?